and it's kicking in, and it's kicking in. But you guys know me, I have to see it. Until I see it, I don't believe it. You know me, I'm the doubting Thomas of the internet. That is who I am. It looks like we're good, but I got to see it. I got to see it. I got to make sure. I just got to make sure I have seen it. I have seen it. It is good. I have seen it, and it is good. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good morning to all my West Coasters. My guest today is on the West Coast. Good evening, if it's evening in your time zone. And, of course, to everybody in the future. Australia, New Zealand. You're a day ahead. Can you fix climate change for the rest of us? We're counting on you. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale because of the pandemic. Check it out. Show them some love. Also, our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. Trendy Name makes topical pain oil for your body. I use it myself. It works wonders. And finally, Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the articles and vids from your favorite outlets and creators. I'm up there. They update the resource twice a day. To learn more and subscribe to everything they got going on and to join their Discord community, they got a Discord community going on there. You can check them out online at independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. And yours truly wrote their theme song. All right, we're going to get straight to my guest today because he actually has a committee meeting that he's on his way to right after this, but he squeezed us in for a few minutes. He is a lawyer, and he is the representative of Washington's 23rd District. Please welcome to the show, Representative Drew Hansen. Drew, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Thanks for taking some time to talk to us. We'll get right to it because I know you're on a time crunch here. Washington State, who has been, you guys are working on some amazing things up there. You're working on single-payer health care. There's a bill for free college that I know you were a big part of. And specifically what I wanted to talk to you about today, there is a broadband bill in Washington State that I believe you are the author of that too, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So break it down for me. How extensive is the bill and where is it at as far as progress right now?
Yeah. So if you think about broadband, you have private providers, Comcast, CenturyLink, AT&T, whoever. And then in a majority of states, there aren't any restrictions on the ability of public providers to offer broadband. So counties, public utility districts, ports, whatever. Washington is one of the minority of states that literally has a state law limiting the ability of public entities to offer broadband. I mean, this is absurd, right? Like, as you noted, Washington's a pretty progressive state in a lot of ways, and we've led the country in a lot of ways. And, you know, look, it's not acceptable that we are one of the minority of states that restrict the ability of the public to offer broadband. Because look, what does this pandemic make clear? Presumably everyone figured out that broadband is a basic essential of modern life before this pandemic. But if you didn't, now you know. Right? Because everyone is relying on broadband access for remote school, for remote work. We're doing the entire legislative session remotely. Let me tell you, members drop in and out because they'd have spotty internet access. So it is long past time to lift those restrictions, let public entities in Washington provide broadband as other states have done, and hopefully we get a little competition. The states that do allow unrestricted public broadband have on average lower costs and faster speeds. And that's what we're looking for because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the commentary on behalf of this bill has just been overwhelming. I don't think anyone's happy with their broadband access unless like there's fiber laid right to their house or something.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting because, we talk about municipal broadband a lot on this show.
Right.
It's one of the topics we cover a good bit. And you can go to, for everyone listening, especially too, you can go to the Institute for Local Self-Reliance and muninetworks.org, and you can find out which states do have some red tape for public broadband development and which states don't. And yeah, when you see Washington State on that list, it does take you back a little. You're surprised. I mean, you guys aren't the only state, but you're one of the more surprising ones, especially since one of the earliest efforts for municipal broadband happened in Tacoma, Washington. Which you wonder if there's a relation there. Can you speak to that? Is that
so great question? And someone has flagged that as a possibility. I don't know. What I do know is this restriction has been in place for a long time, probably 20 years or so. And people have been trying to lift it for the same amount of time. And the cable companies come beat it back. And that's what they're doing with my bill. I mean, you look at my bill, it had a hearing in the House committee. We had over 1,000 people signed in pro on the bill. With just mostly ordinary people who just want to see broadband internet as a basic public service. And then we had the PTA, right? We had the public utility districts. We had the ports. We had the IT director of the Suquamish tribe, one of the sovereign tribes in my district. I mean, we had those all lined up pro. And then signed in con, we had the cable companies. So choose your fighter, right? I mean, if you're a Democrat, there's one side of this debate you need to be on. And I'm hoping this is the year that we actually persuade people that's right.
So right now, the goal is to lift this red tape to allow more municipal broadband in the state of Washington. Are there plans to go a step further and actually have a statewide high-speed internet for all bill?
So there are a bunch of initiatives in the public broadband area. There are funding initiatives related to laying fiber that candidly I'm not tracking all that closely because they're not my immediate problem. There are digital divide initiatives related to making sure that even if people have access to high-speed internet, they have the devices and they have the tech support that will allow them to use that. That's very important. I'm a co-sponsor of one of those bills. There are other things going on in this space as well, but just like, full disclosure, I chair the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee. Broadband's not really my world. Like, I got into this because it was super important to my local public utility district, Kitsap PUD. I mean, we're a mixed urban, rural, suburban county. We got a city, we got a commuter suburb, we got, the place where the Costco and the Target is, we got a bunch of farms and small timber operations, and people out here aren't happy with their internet access. And my local PUD wants to offer public internet the way it offers public power and public water. And I was immediately on board for that, particularly when I realized that the cable companies had been successfully beating this back for 20 years. I thought, well, maybe now's the time for that to change. Like, maybe now this is the year where we actually get to do something we should have done a couple decades ago.
Well, and I'm a policy guy, not a tech guy, and I feel like maybe you're in the same boat. And it's interesting when you look at the studies that have been done, which are just out in the open. I mean, Harvard University did something in conjunction with the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. 100% of the time, the broadband that the city is offering is better and cheaper than what the big cable companies are offering. Now, that says to any person who just takes the time to look at the information, and you don't have to be a tech expert to put this together, that says that internet infrastructure isn't terribly difficult. It's not some impossible feat. I mean, hell, out in the UK, there were farmers laying cable with their tractors. It's not an impossible thing. It's just when you have these cable companies whose only concern is the bottom line, they're not going to do the best job on the infrastructure because they don't care. Meanwhile, if you're in a city, and you can feel free to use this line, although it's easier for me as a comedian to use than you as a politician. The way I like to tell people, hey, look, whether you're the richest resident, the poorest resident, the mayor, or anything in between, everybody wants their porn to load fast.
How about everyone would like to play Exploding Kittens online at a factory? Yeah, how about that?
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that.
I don't even know if you can play it online. Great game. Probably not a sponsor. Won't mention it in case it breaks your non-com. But anyway, sorry. Yeah. So look, I mean, look in the cities even, right? Like, that's where people are like, well, we're fine. It's a dense area. No, they're not. I mean, you should hear the complaining I'm getting about data caps, about speed, about price, about monopolies per area. I mean, it's just, look, I mean, it's not acceptable, and the status quo is not working, and it has not been working for a couple decades. So yeah, I mean, long past time in every area, rural, urban, suburban. And again, my bill doesn't require the government to offer public broadband. Okay, my bill just lists the restrictions and says if you can make it pencil, we're not going to restrict you as a matter of state law from doing it. I mean, that's got to be the easiest sell in the world. Nope, not to the cable companies. I mean, because are they trying to kill this bill? Holy cow, are they trying to kill this bill? And so, we'll see. I mean, we have bipartisan support for it, which is great. I mean, I want to say, I have a Republican #2 on the bill from Eastern Washington, which is a little bit more rural, and he's fired up. His residents don't have the choices that they want, and he wants them to have more choices. We got it out of committee with bipartisan support. So I'm hopeful, right, that this is the year we got the forces aligned in our favor enough that we can pull this off.
So then what's next for the bill as far as getting it into law, and how can people listening help out?
Yeah, so great question. So the next stop is the House floor. We are optimistic that is going to happen quickly. If people in Washington state wish to contact their representatives and tell them to support the Public Broadband Act, House Bill 1336, the bill we're talking about, that'd be great. I mean, it really would, right? We need help. Okay. And then it goes over to the Washington State Senate. Similar drill. By all means, go ahead and tell your senators now how much you love this bill, because we're having discussions over there already. But we're going to have another hearing. We'd love to have people come testify. We had some people we lined up to testify that the ports and the PUDs helped us find. I mean, just this gripping testimony, like Pacific County out on the coast, a bunch of timber, hard to get internet signals. They would love to have this ability. They'd love to have this ability. But just hearing from, we heard from a mom in Spokane who has to drive someplace so that her kids can get enough of a Wi-Fi signal to do their homework. We'd love to hear from more people in the Senate. And so, we'd love people to join us in the Senate when the bill gets over there, and then contact your representatives and your senators. And, look, we need, honestly, y'all, I mean, this has to be a grassroots one, right? I mean, this is one where we need broad grassroots support of people telling their legislators, this is a priority, this is urgent, this is something you have to do, because that's, this is a hard fight, right? There's a reason people haven't been able to do this for 20 years. But I'm hopeful that with the right grassroots bottom-up momentum, we can pull this off.
Where can people go to get involved? I mean, you mentioned some of the public hearings and stuff like that. Is there a place people can go specifically to make sure they're abreast of when that's going on and how they can get involved or submit? Yeah,
so there are. So I'm on a state computer, which sort of limits what I can talk about right now. But there is a state public facing website, which I'm going to find, hopefully without killing you. Give me a second. The state's public-facing website is app.leg.wa.gov / bill info. And then you just type in the number 1336, and then you can see exactly where it is in the process. And critically, when it's scheduled for a hearing, you'll see the place where you can submit a comment. You can, testify, submit something at the hearing, and you can also submit a comment on the bill. And you can also, if you're a Washington State resident, there's something on that same site that allows you to find your district and then contact your legislator. You can also go through those. And frankly, sir, for your listeners, great tool to learn how to use, right? I mean, this is how you find out what bills are doing as they go through it's what I use, app.leg.wa.gov. We don't have any more special info than that about where a bill is in committee or so on.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll make sure we include those in the notes later and stuff like that. So thank you for your work on this bill, and hopefully it gets through, and then hopefully it leads to even bigger and better things in terms of public broadband. I know we only got you for a few more minutes, so I want to switch gears to another important digital rights topic, the rights of net neutrality, which I have a weird feeling today, Mr. Hansen. It's a feeling that I don't feel very often as a lefty in the United States. We won something. So
yeah, we won something.
So let's talk about
that. Look, Washington State was when the FCC repealed the federal nationwide net neutrality standards in one of the more indefensible decisions that body has ever made. Yeah. Washington State was the first state to reinstate state-level net neutrality with my bill, which was bipartisan. And, you should have heard the complaining, like, you're preempted. The FCC has said you can't do this. Washington State can't do this. Okay. So as you mentioned, in normal life, I'm a trial lawyer. I'm not a great preemption scholar, but I have litigated preemption issues in the context of plaintiff side environmental cases. And I thought we had a pretty good argument that, like, the FCC doesn't get to preempt states by just saying, we preempt you. Like, you got to have some federal statute or a constitutional provision that grants you that authority. That's close to an exact quote from Justice Scalia in a preemption opinion. Well, here's what the FCC did in this net neutrality order. It said, okay, look, we don't have authority to impose these net neutrality rules. However, as if by magic, we do have the authority to preempt states from doing the same. And you're like, what? Like, that, you can't do that. Like, if you say we don't have authority over this area, you can't say, okay, except for this, right? We have this authority to, like, block the states from doing that. So that was basically the discussion we had behind the scenes in Washington. Sure enough, a couple of years later, the DC Circuit Court of Appeals agrees with us and says that the FCC doesn't have that authority. And then today, as you note, the Biden administration drops the Trump administration's indefensible lawsuit against California in relation to its net neutrality laws. So, it's a good day. Right now it's on, right? I mean, first of all, it was kind of on when the DC Circuit ruled, but every state, roll that in. That is the easiest win in public policy. You have wide bipartisan support for net neutrality. Start building these up at a state by state level. Hopefully it encourages Congress to act sooner rather than later. But like you said, it's the rare good day if you're on the left.
Big time. I mean, yeah. So here in California, we had a very strong net neutrality bill as well. The Trump administration took it to court. They've been battling it out. As of today, that lawsuit has been dropped by the Biden administration. So a huge win for net neutrality, not just in Washington state and in California, but the rest of the country too. And the connection that I always make there is, look, Washington state, California, and I'm pretty sure Oregon, they have some net neutrality. So they did too. That's the entire West Coast. Then over on the East Coast, you got New York State. So what does that do when and I think Vermont as well, and there's probably a few others. I can't off the top of my head, but there's net neutrality action in the states. And what this does is when a huge customer base like California, Washington State, New York State, when they have these net neutrality protections, you're kind of kneecapping the cable companies because now they can't unroll anti-net neutrality packages in all of these states that have a ton of customers. So what can they do? Their hands are tied. So we've been fighting back at the state level and we're freaking winning. And, what needs to happen next is they need to have that fifth appointee because the FCC is in a 2-2 deadlock right now. They need to have a pro net neutrality fifth appointee, and they need to get net neutrality back.
Oh, amen. Preach. Frankly, and honestly, Congress needs to do it, right? Like, it's time. It's time for Congress just to legislate. It's supposed to be a legislative body. It needs to legislate, like, rather than rely on the FCC to do this. Okay, so speaking of legislating, I got to go back to my committee.
You got to go.
So it is lovely to see you. Lovely to talk to your listeners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for squeezing us in. Good luck to you. Thanks for doing what you do.
Bye.
Peace. All right, there you go. So that's the big story today. And we got to hear about what's going on with broadband in Washington state. And of course, a big win for net neutrality, a huge win for net neutrality. And that was Drew Hansen of Washington's 23rd, who is spearheading that effort for broadband, which that's a very important bill. And for all of you, especially those of you in Washington state, we will be listing that information on how you can contact your representatives in regards to House Bill 1336. That's a very important bill for the cause of municipal broadband. And hey, big win for net neutrality today. It feels weird. This victory, that's not a thing. On the left of the United States, victory is a weird feeling. Honestly, I don't know how to take it. Really, we won one. But of course, it's not over yet. But this is huge. The Biden administration dropping the net neutrality lawsuit. That's huge. That's a victory because now California has some of the best net neutrality protections in the nation. And other states have net neutrality bills as well. Washington state, New York state. Yes. So now we got to get them to reinstate it federally, which hopefully will happen with that fifth FCC appointee who will hopefully be a pro net neutrality appointee. All right. So I have one more thing I wanted to share today. As you all know, there has been a lot going on on YouTube as far as demonetization is concerned. And people have been wondering, well, why exactly now? Like what's going on? Why now? And I have a theory as to why now. Now, this is just a theory. I can't necessarily 110% prove this, but I think it's a pretty solid theory as to why this is going on. Now, we've been covering some good news so far today, but I certainly don't want to give anybody the impression that that the Biden administration is necessarily great on digital rights. There are still a lot of issues that are very concerning. And an issue that we've been talking about on this show a good bit is Section 230. And there's a lot of confusion around Section 230 because the way they report Section 230 is they report it as Section 230 is the thing that protects social media from ever being sued by people for stuff that is on their site because they are a user. Users generate the content, so they can't be held liable. And people kind of look at what's going on and they think, well, gee, Facebook and Twitter, they're acting as publishers. They're engaging in censorship, so maybe they shouldn't have those protections, which that is true that it's a problem what Facebook and Twitter are doing. That is true. That is a problem. However, describing Section 230 as just the thing that protects social media platforms and that's it, that's a very incomplete assessment of what Section 230 really is and what it's all about. Section 230 goes a lot further than that, and Section 230 applies to all user-generated content on the internet. So it's not just social media platforms. It's comment sections on news articles. It's something like a Craigslist or something like that. So messing with Section 230 would have a lot of unintended consequences. First of all, it would lead to more censorship, not less. Because a lot of these social media platforms, if they're going to be worried about lawsuits from whoever and at whatever point, they're just going to censor more content. That's just what they're going to do. Another thing that's going on here is it also loans itself to a whole lot of other problems because, well, let's just start with what's going on. First of all, that first claim I made where, oh, it'll lead to more censorship, not less. Here's a little evidence that supports that right here. This came out recently. Zuckerberg will permanently depoliticize Facebook. Zuckerberg will permanently depoliticize Facebook following violence organized on the platform. So there you go. Their solution is just, well, we're just going to depoliticize the whole thing. And what has been happening in the interim? Well, a bunch of left-wing pages have been taken down. Socialist pages have been taken down. And who wants to mess with Section 230? Well, the Trump administration did. And here's the problem. The Biden administration does too. So bringing it back to demonetization and what's going on there. A bunch of YouTube channels have been demonetized recently. Why? Well, here's the theory as to why. The Safe Tech Act offers Section 230 reform, but the law's defenders warn of major side effects. So here's the first Section 230 reform proposal, and this is from the Biden administration. Here's the paragraph I want to skip down to. First, it would fundamentally alter the core language of Section 230. And given how concise that snippet of language is to begin with, any change is a big change. Under the new language, are you guys ready for this? Section 230 would no longer offer protections in situations where payments are involved. So, if you're YouTube, you already know about this. You already know this is going on if you're YouTube. So what are you going to do? You're just going to go demonetize anything you think could be a problem. You're just going to demonetize it because then guess what? Payments aren't involved. Here's another thing that went on simultaneously with a bunch of channels being demonetized. Simultaneously, they were taking down, they being YouTube, were taking down footage from protests. They were just taking it down. Footage that people were recording from the insurrection on January 6th. People were posting that content, and they were just recording what was going on. And YouTube was taking that content down. They took down Status Quo's content, and they took other content down just from folks who were there, who were just posting stuff on YouTube. How does that coincide with all this? Well, again, here's my theory. YouTube unrolled a new policy not too terribly long ago that they can just randomly monetize stuff if they want to, meaning a user or a creator who may not be a monetized channel or entity, YouTube can just randomly monetize something should YouTube choose to. That happened. I want to say it wasn't a long while ago, but it was somewhat recent. That's a new policy over at YouTube. Now, chances are these decisions for random monetization, if I had to take a guess, I'd say they're probably not made by a person. I'd say they're probably made by some type of AI, maybe something that gets a lot of views. YouTube figures, screw it, we're throwing an ad up there. And that decision's probably not made by a live person. So what if some content got monetized that was just somebody's protest footage or footage from the insurrection on January 6th, and somebody has a problem with it? Well, a payment is involved now. There is a payment involved, but who does that payment go to? Well, it doesn't even go to the creator in this case. It's just YouTube making money from advertisers. Probably not a good look. Probably not a good look at all, right? So how do they prevent a scenario like that from happening? Well, they're just going to take the content down. Now there's no content for a potential payment to be involved. And any of the channels that seem like they might be problematic, well, you're demonetizing them. So now there's no payment involved. And again, this goes into why you don't want to mess with Section 230. Section 230 applies to all users on the internet, not just social media platforms. So messing with it would have a bunch of unintended consequences like what we're seeing now. The solution is not to alter 230. The solution is to make new policies, additional policies that meet the moment and actually address the problems head on. Some of the solutions that we've talked about, somehow requiring the social media platforms to follow the free speech laws of the United States. That sounds like a good solution to me. They follow the free speech laws of the United States, and there's a transparent process around it. Making these things public utilities would be the most ideal thing. Make them public utilities. Break them up. Now, unfortunately, we probably shouldn't hold our breath on that one. But that would be the best solution. So that's my theory as to why we're seeing a lot of this demonetization. I think it has to do with this new policy from the Biden administration, where if a payment is involved, you don't get Section 230 protections. Well, if you're a social media company and you're aware of this, what are you going to do? You're just going to strip out the payments being involved. We demonetize these channels. There's no payment involved. So now if you're Google, YouTube, that's kind of a win-win for you, isn't it? Because first of all, a lot of these creators, that they're popular, they have followings, so you still have them putting content on your platform because they still need to reach people on YouTube. But you don't have to worry about anything. You still got the clicks, you still got the eyeballs, but hey, there's no payment involved. So this is why messing with Section 230 isn't a good idea. And you know what else messing with Section 230 does? It will be okay. The YouTubes and the Facebooks and the Twitters, they'll be okay. They'll be able to get through it. But you know who it'll hurt the most? It'll hurt new platforms. Repealing something like Section 230, where platforms are liable for whatever, that'll make sure that there's never another Facebook, that there's never anything that could compete with Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. So this is just another, for instance, of why repealing Section 230 is not the answer, and altering Section 230 is not the answer. Additional policy that meets the moment, and keep in mind, this is new territory. I know sometimes it's hard to wrap our heads around this one because, a lot of us, it's hard to remember our pre-internet life, but the internet in many ways is still a very new thing. I know that's hard to imagine because a lot of people, they don't know life without the internet. I mean, some of y'all watching this now, you might not know life without the internet. A lot of us do. I remember life without the internet. But, sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, how did I do that pre-internet? We're all there because it's a utility in our life now. But this is just another, for instance. Repealing Section 230 isn't the answer. That will lead to a lot of unintended consequences, and this is one of them. But this is the United States of America, where sometimes we think you can fix a problem with shitty policy. Hey, we have a problem. Well, we have a bad idea going into law. We gotcha. That's what the United States tries to do. And it's Republicans and Democrats who do it. It's a bipartisan effort. Hey, here's a problem. We can make it worse. And that's what repealing Section 230 would do. It would take a bad problem and it would make it worse. And by the way, there's bipartisan support. Trump was all about it. So is Joe Biden. Two people, by the way, who don't really understand the internet. Joe Biden does not really understand the internet. Donald Trump does not really understand the internet. But Joe Biden started his campaign with a bunch of Comcast executives. So there you go. So that's my theory, folks. That's my theory as to why demonetization is happening and happened now. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. So thank you guys. Anthony Chisholm, what's up, buddy? Washington resident, excited to hear from your guest. Yeah, I mean it was pretty cool. He he was on his way to a committee meeting, so he couldn't stay too long. But we got to cover the stuff I really wanted to cover with him. I really wanted to make sure we talked about the net neutrality victory today, which again, I'm smiling a lot, and it's just natural. I'm smiling. It's like, wow, we won one. We won one. Feels weird. I'm a little speechless today. I don't know how this feels weird. It feels weird. And I know there's tons of horrible news coming up today. I mean, Narratanden's probably going to be confirmed. There's more stuff coming. I get it. But for once this morning, we won one. We won one. We're not necessarily moving forward. We're just getting back to where we were since the advent of the internet. We've had net neutrality since the advent of the internet, by the way. It was just assumed, and it didn't get officially on the books till 2015. And we've not seen the effects of a post-net neutrality world yet. Why? Because a bunch of people have been fighting it on the front lines. That's why. They were fighting it in California and in Washington State. And that's why we haven't seen the effects of a post-net neutrality world. And it looks like, fingers crossed, we're not going to anytime soon. So whenever somebody says, oh, yeah, I don't think net neutrality is all that important. We haven't had it since 2017. You tell them, no. We've always had net neutrality. We've always had it. We got it solidified on the books in 2015. Big Cable wants to mess with it. That's why they got it repealed. And you haven't seen the effects of a post-net neutrality world on a mass level yet. You've seen it in microdoses. You really have. But you haven't seen it on a mass level yet because people are fighting on the front lines in the States. That's why. So, and we won this one. So net neutrality protections are here to stay in California. They're there in Washington State. They're there in New York. And I believe Vermont as well, and some other states. So when this happens, even if you don't live in any of those states, it's still a huge win because, again, that kneecaps big cable's ability to unroll anti-net neutrality packages. So, if 43% of the customer base or more can't have anti-net neutrality packages because it's against the law in their state, well, then what are you going to do? You're going to try to unroll these anti-net neutrality packages elsewhere. Chances are other states will follow suit anyway. So guess what? Big cable has to follow net neutrality protections. They still have way too much power. They still need to be out of the equation anyway, but we're winning a little bit at a time. So, yeah. Celebrate the win today, folks. I mean, honestly, don't become complicit. Don't do that. But, I mean, for crying out loud, we lose so freaking much. We being if you're a lefty in the United States, like, all you do is lose. I mean, we just lose all the time. We always lose. I mean, that's all we've done in my lifetime. Now, there have been societal advancements. Yes, society has progressed in some areas, and that is awesome. And I am super happy for that. But as far as actual political wins, that's not just a reflection of society progressing. We haven't seen that in my lifetime. In my entire lifetime, that hasn't happened, because arguably the last time that happened was probably the 60s. And one could argue it didn't even really happen then, because that was just sort of the remnants of the 30s, where the working class was still powerful and unions were still powerful. So and whether you want to, whether you could argue that or not, it's not really all that important, because either way, we're talking decades, decades since there's been a true lefty political win on a mass scale in this country. It just hasn't happened. You're not represented. If you're a lefty in the United States, you're not represented. Democrats don't represent you. Republicans don't represent you either. You're kind of just fighting as hard as you can to change this place for the better. And here's the good news, folks. There's more of us than we realized. We're not as outnumbered as we thought we were. For years, again, for my entire lifetime, the media and the powers that be and the ruling class and the donor class, they've been trying to make it seem like anyone who sees the world the way you do, the way I do, the way a lot of you watching do, we should probably move to Denmark or somewhere like that if we want to be represented politically. We're just not. We're just in the wrong place. But there's more of us than we realize. There's a lot more people who see the world the way we do than we thought. So, but still, man, enjoy those small victories. And today's a victory, folks. Today we do have a victory. Let's see here. Anthony Chisholm, what's up? Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. You're a Washington resident. Excited to hear from your guests. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that chat. And again, it is House Bill 1336. You can go to app.ledge.wa.gov/billinfo. That nice, easy URL there. Why isn't it just billinfowa.com? Why isn't it just that? Anyway, or .gov. But either way, you go there and you can follow this bill. You can submit public comment. And also you can call your representatives, and please do that. Email your representatives, urge them to support House Bill 1336. That's the House bill to lift restrictions on public broadband and to allow public broadband to be a possibility. All right. So thank you for that. Red Pill, what's up? Make Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook utilities. Amen to that. That'd be awesome. That's the best solution. Gordon, what's up, buddy? Thank you for the pair lifting weights. I love pairs, and I really love, a pair lifting weights. Why not? Did you check out Benny? What's up, buddy? Did you check out the Beat Seekers Outrage Bandcamp? No, I haven't yet. I know I need to do that. Let me write it down again. I know I have to check out that band that you recommended to me. But I have not yet, and I will. But thank you for the reminder. I appreciate it very much. And Red Pill, you give me another super chat here, and you say, for a Lucy kitty treat. Thank you so much. Lucy appreciates it, as do I. Thank you. Where is she, by the way? She's no, she's not in her usual space. Usually she's asleep on the couch. But I guess maybe she's running around somewhere. I don't know. Something got our attention. Well, guys, that's it for today. It's a shorter show today because my guest had a pretty tight time constriction, but we got through everything I really wanted to get through, which is awesome. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And again, it is House Bill 1336. My guest today was Drew Hansen from Washington's 23rd District. And he is the author of that bill. He is also the author of Washington State's net neutrality bill. So he's doing some good things up in Washington State. And please do throw your support behind that bill, especially if you are a Washington State resident. And I'll tell you what, public broadband, single payer healthcare, Washington State, you're showing up. You're doing your thing. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have Jamal Thomas, the Progressive Soapbox. I haven't talked to him in a while. It's been a minute. Last time we talked was when he was on the Political Misfits radio show. I don't know if he's still on that show. I think he might be doing other stuff now. But anyway, we're going to talk to him. His channel was demonetized recently. I think it has since been remonetized, but we're going to be talking to him tomorrow. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Thank you so much. Let me go through the thank yous here again. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Red Pill. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Red Pill, again. Y'all keep this show on the air. I cannot do it without you. And by the way, if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, patreon.com/Ron Placone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content. You get a patrons-only Zoom show once a week. You get a patron stream once a week where the replay is only available on Patreon and on Rockfin. Also on the Rockfin. And I'll make you a theme song. Huh? Don't you want a theme song? Theme songs are great. I'll make one for you. And how much does all that cost? It's a give what you can level. Whatever you're comfortable giving, I know it's tough times. And by the way, if you're not on stable ground financially, don't worry about it. There's all kinds of ways you can support this show that don't cost a dime. Like these videos, share these videos. You can sign up on Rockfin. There's a $10 membership, gives you everyone's premium content, but you can sign up for free. You just got to sign up. You like these videos, you share these videos, you tweet these videos. That helps out a lot, and it goes a long way. You watch the ads all the way through. If you're watching on YouTube, you can play them in a separate window on mute. And don't just do that for me. Do that for all the content creators you know and love. Those are ways you can support the show that don't cost a dime. But if you are on stable ground financially and it's of interest to you, again, patreon.com/Ron Placone. I do not have tiers on my Patreon. My Patreon is tierless. Not tiers, we have the good kind. We have tears of joy on the Patreon. But tiers, T-I-E-R, we don't have any of those. There's a tierless Patreon. So that's great. That's great. No tiers except for the good kind. So whatever level you're comfortable giving with, whatever you're comfortable giving with, that's my Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Placone. All right. I will see y'all tomorrow. And in the meantime, Dave, what's up? Thank you so much, Dave, for your super chat contribution. Dig your shows, Ron. Your efforts gives us hope. Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate that very much. Thank you again, Dave. And of course, thank you to Anthony, Red Pill, Gordon, Benny, and Red Pill again. Thank you for your super chat contributions. You all keep the show on the air. We'll be back tomorrow. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.